All right, so I think I hit the record. I hit the record button. All right, welcome to Jeremiah Creek. You know what? I was saying to myself that I ought to put a note on the screen that says "Turn on the record button, dumbass," so that I don't do what I did a few weeks ago.
Did we not record?
What, three weeks ago, 4 weeks ago,
something like that. Yeah.
and we had a great first 20 minutes that we didn't record at all.
Yeah. Then we tried to redo it, and it was like, nope.
All right.
Doesn't work the same. It's flat.
So we're recording on my deck again. So if you hear the airplanes going over, I live right under the approach path for runway 32 left at O'Hare.
Couldn't we get an app that tells us what flight's over our head?
Yeah.
Oh, we should do that.
Yeah, you can look them up.
That's
well,
cool.
I don't know. You know what? I don't know. We used to be able to look them up at war. I think so. Yeah.
I mean, if the cops can, then we can.
Yeah.
Civilians.
There was an app, and they used to have a TV that just showed it down at OEMC of all the planes in the area.
Yeah.
And so there's a heat wave brewing.
Yeah.
It was 90 degrees again today. And
that
the
doesn't
last
feel like a heat wave to me. I mean, it's
Well,
hot, but
it's only a heat wave in that it now lasted 3 days. It's going to last till Saturday, I think.
Huh.
So 6 days long of 90-degree heat is a heat wave.
a bunch of people in another country died because of the heat.
Yeah, but they're in another country, so we don't care.
I don't care. Hey, well, they don't speak English, so that's why I don't care. Hey, Siri, what is 50 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
The answer is
122 degrees.
Fahrenheit.
Where?
One of the desert countries.
Oh.
And they were at a...
It's a dry heat, though.
Yeah, they're at a... That's what they said as they died. 122 people, man.
Wow.
I mean, 122 degrees, 500 people died.
Well,
it was at Hajj. That's where it was.
we are just a couple weeks away from the 29th anniversary of the big Chicago heat wave, where it got above 100 for several days in a row, and a couple hundred people died. And they had trucks. They had the refrigerated trucks at the medical examiner's office because they couldn't handle all the bodies.
And yet last night, we slept under the blanket and were complaining about how cold it was because in order to keep our house, in order to keep it from exploding in our house, we have to cool the whole thing down to sub-zero, because nothing works right in our fucking house. They retrofitted the central air and heat, into a house built in 1937, and it doesn't work correctly. Like in the wintertime, it's an oven upstairs, and in the summertime, it is a freaking freezer downstairs. And then we have to put a window unit in our bedroom in order to survive in the evening. And so we shiver.
Well, we don't have central air. We have window units, but I'll tell you something. And this just here, talk about first world problems. This goes to show you how what a cheap ass I am. Although my wife has never forced me to do this, so either she just goes along with this, or she's as cheap as I am. That's what I think. But we bought blankets from IKEA, all right? And she has fancy duvet covers.
Yeah.
All right, but the blankets are from IKEA. If you've never bought blankets from IKEA, they have the best blankets.
And they're cheap.
And they're cheap. Yeah. They're cheap, and they're the best blankets. And here's what you do. You go there, and they have different sections. They're all white because you're supposed to buy a duvet cover, and that's what my wife does. And you pick out the blanket for the thermal whatever that you want. Okay? So here's the thing. We bought the blankets. The last time we bought blankets was in late fall. So we bought the heavy blankets for the winter.
Oh, okay.
And, part of this is we're getting ready to move, but part of it is because I'm a cheap motherfucker. But now that it's summertime, we have to turn the air conditioner up because we have these blankets that keep you so warm.
Yeah.
And-
And if you get out of them, then you freeze to death.
Yeah,
There's
and
no
I
in
can't.
between, man.
And I can't sleep without a blanket. I don't know why. It's something as a kid.
I have to sleep with like one leg sticking out of the blanket,
Sometimes I do that too.
and then it's over the middle, and then like my shoulder and my arm are sticking out. You know what I mean? It's stupid. Okay, now it brings up another subject. This is a subject that Kyle and I argued about recently. What is a blanket? What is the difference between a blanket and a duvet and a comforter?
Well, I think a blanket and a comforter are the same thing. They're just two different words for.
They go under a duvet and above the sheets, right?
No, a duvet is the blanket. It's. I mean, it's is the cover that goes over the blanket that makes it look pretty or whatever the hell. It's just like a bag. It's just, it's like a giant pillowcase. I think. I don't know. At least that's a duvet cover.
I'm trying to figure out, if you're in a hotel room, you got your bottom sheet, your top sheet, and then like this thin flannel blanket. And then there's a thing that goes on top of that, right? And really nice hotel rooms.
Well,
What's the thin blanket called? It's a blanket, right?
it's just a blanket. Yeah.
and
it's
then
a-
the thing that goes on top of it is a comforter, right?
Yeah, but I think a blanket is just a thin. It's the same thing as a comforter is just a thick blanket.
This is what is irritating me is that I actually looked this up, and there are diagrams, all right, for what the parts of the bed linens are, and they're all different. Every fucking one of them is different. And also, there is a bed making Olympics.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen it.
What the fuck?
I sent I sent it. I saw it on TikTok. I think
You might have sent me that video.
I might have. I sent it to my wife because nothing turns her on more than seeing men doing chores. And doing chores, these guys made a bed like it nobody's business, man.
So fast, man.
And neat.
Yeah, like perfect.
And
That's
yeah.
points. You
Yeah.
know?
And
Didn't they iron the sheets or something at some
no. But they were able. They would. The way they would fold the sheets in a certain way and then walk them over to the bed and then flip them onto the bed so that they lay down immediately.
Yeah, that's just
It was cool.
bed ninjas.
All right, here now you see. This is the kind of shit we talk about because we're in our 50s and now it's time.
I'm in my 60s.
Our wives are
Rich.
not leaving us for anybody else. So
Yeah, we don't really know. Well, mine could.
But anyway,
Mine could.
here's a fight we've been having for 30 years. Do you? First of all, do you have a top sheet?
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't sleep on top of it like my brother-in-law Tony thought you did for his entire life.
No.
But
Does he think that's why it's called top sheet?
yeah, that was a funny family thing when they were married. But
He listens to the show, so we love you anyway.
yeah, we love you, Tony. But the other thing was okay. So we've been having a fight for 30 years. When you put the top sheet on the bed, do you put it facing the pattern facing up, and you sleep under the sheet, the part of the sheet with no pattern, or do you put it with the pattern facing down, so that when you fold the blanket over, the pattern shows on that little.
Oh, yeah.
And I grew up, and and every time I would make the bed, and this lasted. We've only settled this argument. Oh, let me put it this way: I've only given up the fight in the last couple of years, where I now make the bed like she wants me to. But I always did it, and mostly because of habit. I mean, when I was a kid,
Tell us, Dave.
and when I was in the Marine Corps, we had white sheets. So
Yeah, that's what I have.
when I really had to make my bed, I had to make white sheets. But now that we have patterned sheets, she believes that you have to put the sheet upside down so that when you fold it over, the pattern shows.
I mean, I understand that because it looks good. I mean, and that's what it looks like in the advertisement, right?
I don't know, does it?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's the way they show the pattern and everything.
Oh.
But on the other hand, if there's a difference in how it feels, then you go for comfort, man. All of our bed linen is perfectly white, so it doesn't matter to us.
Really?
Yeah, I don't have any patterns or anything. It's all white.
I don't know.
Sheets, top
I don't
sheet.
even. How do well, I guess you can. When I buy sheets, I buy basically the first one I see that says Queen on it. I don't really pay a whole lot of attention.
Okay,
to it.
well, okay. So I recently went a little bit crazy about our bed because I thought to myself, it's ridiculous that we're, headed into our 60s, and it looks like we look like we sleep like homeless people, right? Just a pile of shit in the middle of the bed, and every night we gotta like figure it out, Plus, we have a king size bed, but like we have entirely different sleeping habits, and we can't sleep under one blanket together because it's blanket fighting all night long.
Oh.
So since very early in our marriage, we've been a bi-blanket. We're a bi family, a bi-blanket family. I have my blanket, she has her blanket. Never the twain shall meet. And I realized the other day, I'm like, why don't I just do that with all of our bed linens? And so, because a king is basically 2 extra twins, I went and got linens for all that to make it so it looks really pretty. Because I want my wife to want to go to bed and go to sleep because she doesn't sleep enough, and it is working.
Wait,
I
so
make the
you
bed
got
every day.
you got king size sheets though?
Nope. I got extra twin or twin XL sheets, and I basically make 2 beds that are shoved together now. It's a king size bed, but
there's a line going down.
yeah.
So when you sleep, don't you mess up the sheets that you're sleeping on?
Yeah, and then I make the bed the next day.
Yeah, but don't you move around in the middle of the night? Don't you all of a sudden wake up and you're not sleeping on the sheet anymore?
No, what the fuck are you talking about?
If the bottom sheet doesn't cover the entire mattress.
No, okay. A king size bed, our king size top mattress is 2 twin XL mattresses
Oh.
because you couldn't get a king size up our stairs, and that's what size a king size bed is anyway.
Yeah.
And so we have. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So I'm basically making 2 beds like that, and it looks great, and it's working. My wife now makes the bed every morning. My wife makes her side of the bed every morning. I'm fine with that. That's okay because it invites her to go up to bed and go to sleep, which she desperately needs to do. She doesn't sleep enough.
My wife makes the bed almost every day. I have to say, I don't usually. I get out of bed before she does, so it's not like I'm not intent. But even when I sleep later than her, I hate making the bed, so I don't make the bed.
Yeah.
But she usually does. All right, so that we should. It's 12 minutes and 42 seconds of talking about BS.
Absolute.
We should talk about some
riveting
real
bed linen superstar stuff.
Well, it does bring I wanted to do videos like how to make a bed, for 50-year-old guys, and then have it a practical demonstration by a woman in a bikini.
I mean, whenever you're ready to do that, all right?
Yeah.
I think you should make it happen. I'm sure down in Tennessee, you'll be able to find some girls that don't have anything to do.
All right, wait a minute. I have some. Do you have topics? I have a couple of topics.
Topics. I mean, I went down and hung out with my other neighbor briefly last night because he wanted me to sign some books. I'm doing physical therapy. I have a weird thing that's happening. I wanted to learn how to use Adobe Premiere to edit videos.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably going to eventually do the eating Vincent Price cooking videos.
Uh-huh.
Right? When I start, I want to already know how to do everything. So I'm not using those videos to learn, right? I want them to look good. I'm getting pretty good at it. And so to do this, every morning I film my journaling routine. I film a couple of things in my office. I can practice like using the camera and everything. And then I dump it all on my computer and I edit it and I throw it up on YouTube. So I know how to do everything, right? I kind of develop my own little routine for doing that. So like when I start doing EVP, man, I'm going to hit the ground running. I just did it just so I knew the process. I'm not like having a channel or anything. Except now I have a channel. I've had 11,000 views of me writing in my journal. People are emailing me or commenting every day about all the stuff in my journal and asking me questions. YouTube says, we want to put you on track to monetize. Click this button. We'll let you know when you hit the right. I'm never going to get there. But I'm like, what the hell? I just was trying to learn how to do this shit. And it's just, Dave, it's just me writing in my journal. That's all it is. Except occasionally I take a picture of the cat or a video of the cat because he's out and he wants to go in. That's all it is, man. People are all over it. It is so weird.
You should put it on the Jeremiah Creek thing. Maybe we should figure out how
I
to.
thought I put.
We should do some videos.
You should do ASMR videos. Oh, by the way, it's an ASMR video.
What's
Because
A-
so ASMR is when everyone in the video is whispering and it's really quiet and it's all about the scritchy, scratchy sounds and everything. It's ambient sounds. I don't talk and I don't show my face in the video. So it's just the sound of my pen on the paper or whatever sounds I make in my office, plus the birds and the planes going over and all that shit. People, I had a guy the other day write a comment and said, hey man, love your videos. I've been falling asleep to them. I'm like, what? I'm like, really? Why? And he's like, the sound of the videos is very calming. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, you know what? I'm doing God's work, Dave.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
All right. I got some topics that I just found. All right. So you this might be interesting to you. Some archaeologists discovered the oldest wine.
They drink it?
That brings right
Okay.
away to one of the questions that I have.
Yeah.
A team of researchers in southern Spain discovered the oldest known wine in the world in a collection of urns that also contain cremated remains. Listen,
Okay, were the remains
Right off the-
with the wine, in the wine?
yeah,
Or
one of them was, yeah.
it's like in the wine itself.
Yeah.
So the wine was a preservation for, okay, this is gross.
But wait, let me read this the way it does it, because you used to be an editor.
Okay.
A team of researchers in southern Spain discovered the oldest known wine in the world in a collection of urns that also contained cremation remains and a gold ring, a study published Sunday read. So that's one sentence,
Yeah, that's terrible.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's terrible.
First of all, should say cremated remains, not cremation remains. That was my first thing.
Yeah. Unless they're including like shards of pottery and stuff like that. But yeah, even then, you just go with the typical thing. It should be 3 sentences.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be 3 sentences. All right, so anyway, these researchers are from the University of Cordoba. And somebody was doing rehabilitation work on a house. They uncovered a shaft, which I believe is under, everybody who owns a house believes they're going to find this secret shaft somewhere. Uncovered a shaft by which the archaeologists discovered a chamber of largely untouched vaulted Roman mausoleum carved in rock.
That's cool as shit.
Yeah, right?
That's cool.
There were 8, is it niches?
Niches.
Niches?
Yeah.
In the walls of the
no,
chamber.
Niches. Bitches.
6 of them holding urns, according to the study. 3 urns held the bone ashes of a female, while the other 3 held the bone ash of males. The scientists observed the names of the deceased carved in gypsum. And they found that one of the 3 urns holding some of the male bones were also filled to the brim with a reddish liquid. Subsequent chemical analysis revealed the liquid to be white wine, but it was reddish.
Well,
Yeah.
you know why.
And then a gold ring they found it. So here, I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to make the point that I think everybody who owns a house believes somewhere somebody hid something.
Did you find anything in your house have you ever done rehabilitation?
I did rehabilitation. I didn't find anything. I left something.
Oh no! Wait, what'd you leave?
Just a newspaper. Just
Oh,
a newspaper.
We found something in our house when we did the basement.
What'd you do?
We had to tear the walls out. It was a total tear out in our basement because of flooding. And when they pulled the wall off one of the exterior, pulled the finish, the paneling and everything off of one of the walls, there was a giant elephant tusk in there. It's carved.
Really?
It's in my office. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it's it's only about 18 inches, but it's definitely ivory. And I'm sure it's illegal to own it. Well, maybe not, because I inherited it.
Is it 18 inches by your measurement or by Colleen's measurement? Anyway. Oh, I thought of something else we
You
did
started
too.
at the bottom of the shaft,
We did.
and you do the elephant tusk all the way to the tip.
We did countertops in our kitchen, and we have a corner cabinet that has a space behind it, and I took one of those Halloween dog skeletons and put it back there too.
Yeah.
So it's plastic. It'll just be, if they take the cabinets, change the
It'll be
cabinets.
so long. Somebody will dig it up in archaeology, and they'll say that it had religious significance.
Yeah, because nobody's going to touch this house for the next 2,000 years.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
But okay. So the idea that you're just doing rehab in your house and you find this shaft that was amazing to me. Second of all, though, who owns this stuff?
You mean when they find it?
Yeah. I mean, they talk about how they took it, these professors and the scientists, and they looked at it. But okay, probably the wine isn't going to be valuable because it was in an urn
With remains.
with remains. Although, I think some people would pay some cash for that.
Yeah.
But aside from that, the gold ring and probably whatever the containers themselves are probably worth money. And who knows what else they found down there. But my question is, if you find something, I mean, it would seem to me if it's on your property, you own it. But if there is historical significance like something like this, the oldest bottle of wine, does it go to a museum? Can the government take it? I mean, this is in Spain, right?
I think you said Spain, yeah. Well, if it was here in America, then it's on your property, then you own it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, but I mean, the reason the scientists found out about it in Spain is because those people called the scientists. So I'm sure there's already in place, agreements and stuff like that. There's just boilerplate stuff. Because I mean, people find a lot of shit, especially in an old world like that.
Yeah.
People find a lot of shit in America. You're talking about people finding shafts and stuff under their house. It happens more than you think. There's a story like that once a month on the internet, and it's not the same story. It's a different story. People find. Like extra rooms under their house that they didn't know were there.
I did see a story about somebody who found behind their medicine cabinet there was a whole apartment in this building that they started to build, but somehow it didn't work out, and so they left it. Now my question there was, who gets the apartment? Can you put a door in? And
dude, my wife would say it's better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yeah.
So if there's a whole extra room like that, first of all, office.
Yeah.
All right. Second of all, office / library, and third of all, we're gonna have to move the bathroom. So, but I would love to have. I don't know if I'd want to have. I see a lot of videos of secret rooms, like people building secret rooms in their house. Because it's really cool looking, open up the bookcase and there's like a place to read in there, and I'm thinking there's a place to read in front of the bookcase.
Yeah.
Like you could just sit on your couch and read. You could have used that space, but whatever.
I have a secret storage space in my house.
You already said that the dog skeleton's in it.
No, I meant a storage, basically a closet, and instead of a regular door, it has a bookshelf in front of it. So. But it's not big enough to like turn it into anything.
You do a wine.
By the way, in our new house, we were down. Me and the wife were down at our new house last week, and we have a lot of plans, things we're gonna do. As soon as we get down there full time. There is enough rooms because the kids aren't coming with us, so there's enough rooms down there that we each get, like, she gets one room as her office, sewing room, exercise room, because it's like they took 2 bedrooms and turned it into one big room, so that she's going to be able to use that. And then I get one room that's my TV, reading room, the room I could smoke in, stuff like that. And so we get to decorate those whatever way we want. When we're down there and we're discussing what to do with the house, there is no room that she has more ideas what to do with than the room that is mine. She can't walk by the door going, what color would look good in here? Or, we should put the TV over there. I said, well, you know what? I will decide that when we move down there. All by myself.
Oh, man.
I love that. It makes me laugh every time she does it. And then, that's one of those things, boy, when you were in your 20s would have started a fight. Now it's just like, yeah, all right, whatever.
Yeah, now it's like, well, thanks for that, babe. I'll put that on the list.
I'll
Maybe
keep
you can help me if I do that.
All right, so I got some other things here. Hold on.
My wife was home with the dog by herself yesterday, or Monday night. So I had a meeting, and I came home and she was just livid, right? She wasn't mad at me. She was just mad, and she was like in her chair, clearly mad. The dog was standing in the middle of the room, and just stared at me when I came in, you know.
Like it's your fault.
Yeah, and she's like, this is the worst night of my life. I'm like, what? And she goes, he's been just crazy. I'm like, what do you mean? Sorry, I'm making it sound like my wife has a deep voice. She doesn't. So all I can envision is, so she gets really nervous when the dog gets up off his bed, because that means she thinks he's gonna pee. So it's if I'm at home, she's like, the dog got up. And I'm like, first of all, I can see that. And second of all, so what? He gets to walk around. He's allowed, you know. She goes, he probably wants out. I'm like, God damn.
So then you have to get up and go to the door, and then
the dog's like, what are you doing? So with me, the dog's like, he knows that I don't give a shit. But with Colleen, like, she can't, if she thinks he has to go out, she has to make him go out. He doesn't want to go out. So they're fighting the whole night. Their energies are, both of them are going into high level anxiety the whole time. So I come home and they're just vibrating with anxiety and like everything. And so she goes, I'm going to bed. I'm like, cool, I'm going to hang out down here. She got around the top of the stairs. My dog walked over his bed and fell down. Went to sleep and didn't make a fucking sound for the next 2 hours. She was like, he's been barking and licking things. And I'm like, dude, it's your energy, babe. You make him nervous. He makes you nervous. Snowballs.
My dog will wake up because now she's old. Now she sleeps in our room. But she'll wake up, come over to my side of the bed, and bark very softly so as not to wake my wife up.
That's so weird, man. That's so weird.
Because she knows it'll wake me up, and she knows that I'll have to go to the bathroom if she wakes me up.
Wow.
But it's gotten to the point now that I can sleep through the night without going to the bathroom. I'll be like, it's too early, go back to bed. And she'll go back to bed.
Wow. But when I used to have Ty, he'd come over and he'd just touch me with his nose.
Oh, I hate
and
that.
I'd wake up, you know? And both the dogs would be staring at me with their tails going like, God damn. I'm like, all right, it's my fault because I have dogs.
All right. So there was a lawsuit concerning X, formerly known as Twitter.
How long do we have to say
Yeah, I
that?
was just wondering that too. How long?
Can we just say X now? Everybody knows.
Does everybody know now?
I think the reason
We
a
all
lot of
know.
people say it is just a snub to Elon Musk, you know?
I don't know. I like Twitter. I think he just changed the name so that... Do you remember how they did the Twitter files last year? Where they released everything that the government did leading up to the election to suppress speech on Twitter?
Okay, yeah.
Now they can call them the X-Files.
Wow.
I think that he changed the name of the company just so they can do that.
I mean, he's a billionaire.
Yeah. All right, so there was some guy named Mark Martel brought a suit. They objected to X using a Microsoft software called PhotoDNA. And this story got me interested, right? Because I was like, what the hell is PhotoDNA? And I thought they were talking about, at first I thought they were talking about facial recognition and stuff. And I was like,
kind of what it sounds like.
right. And I was like, well, that would piss me off too. And so PhotoDNA, which is used across the tech industry to detect and report child porn, required the collection of biometric data, and this collection violated Illinois' Biometric Information Privacy Act. So that was the lawsuit. A win for him would have imperiled the use of PhotoDNA and similar software by all sorts of tech companies, thwarting tools that have proved useful in fighting sexually explicit image of minors and revenge porn and terroristic images and stuff like that. So even though it sounds that he lost his suit, it seems like, a guy loses a privacy suit against big tech. It sounds like a sad story, but it's probably good news. So I looked up PhotoDNA and I was like, what does this do? Because I still, even after reading that, thought, it sounds like they're collecting our information, which I hate. And so PhotoDNA was really interesting. And I'm like, I'm amazed I've never heard of this before. PhotoDNA, what it does is it takes images and it puts a code on every image. The idea being, in child porn, let's say, somebody puts a child porn image on the internet. Remember, and if you stop and think about this as I say it, you will remember the old days of the internet, back when we all first started using it. These images would be bouncing around, and even if you got rid of one, you could say you can't get rid of them all because once it's there, it's all there.
Yeah.
Well, what this does is this photo DNA, it puts a code on the image, or it encodes the image or something like that, to make it like DNA, like a fingerprint. That image will have, and it takes all the aspects of that image and creates a code, and so if that image pops up again, it knows it's the same image and it immediately gets rid of it.
Wow. What how does it know it's child porn?
You know what? It didn't go into that. What it did was it just talked about encoding the image so that it couldn't just be repetitively reposted. The same image would automatically get knocked out. I don't know if somebody has to look at it the first time or whatever.
I feel like there's a job somewhere that some guy has.
Yeah. To look
where
at
he's
child
got to
porn.
go, yes.
That's child porn.
Yes. That would be terrible. Of course, now they can use AI, but that would be even worse
Yeah.
because it would just be training it too.
AI might end up liking it. And then.
And then, no matter where you go, all the cameras see you is completely naked.
What else? There was something else that it brought up about that.
You know, I haven't watched I just quit watching the news, so I've worked so much this week that I don't know anything that happened. I literally don't know anything that happened in the world since, like, maybe last time we talked. I've been working nonstop.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, I every morning or for at least a little while I read the newspapers and stuff and see what's going on.
I'm thinking about subscribing to a newspaper for that very reason.
Oh, I don't do that. Just get a thing app on your phone.
No, I like the paper. I like it. You know? Plus, I need a thing to throw away. I need to stack them up
Oh God.
and then eventually throw them away. I need something to start my fires with. You know?
I don't know. You know what? I think that I can't. I gotten to a point in my life where I can't read just one paper because every paper is so biased. You have to read several things to get a real story, a sense of the story. They're starting the Washington Post. If you haven't heard this, it was pretty interesting. Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos, and they lost $77 million, I think, last year, something like that. I think that's right. So he hired some guy in England to be the new publisher. And the new publisher basically was telling the whole staff, nobody reads your crap, and you got to start being more interesting. You got to write more interesting. You got to edit more interesting and stuff like that. You got to make these stories more interesting because nobody wants to read 17 articles all about Donald Trump every day about how rotten he is. You have to mix it up. Talk about things that are going on in Washington other than Donald Trump and stuff like that. And then I think the way it sounded, and I never looked into this because I don't read the Washington Post, but they divided the newsroom up into 3 sections. Like, I mean, the way the Sun-Times is divided up is national politics, local politics, sports. They divided the newsroom up into 3 people. They laid a few people off. By the way, they laid something like 200 people off, 5% of their workforce. How many fucking people work at the Washington Post that 200 people is 5% of their workforce?
Well, it's not just writers and stuff. I'm sure they were laying off pressmen and delivery people
Why
and administrative.
Well, I guess they just
people.
still use pressmen, yeah. I guess.
Because they still print the Washington Post too.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was across the whole.
But
board.
even pressmen. Okay, when I was in high school, we had print shop. They don't have print shop anymore.
No, but like the Washington Post is big enough that they probably are also, like the Chicago Tribune, a printer for other papers.
Okay, but still, they have people working on the printer. But how many people? It's a big machine. It's not like how many people do you have?
A big machine.
Yeah,
it's like a block long.
All right, so how many people do you think work on a machine like size?
Probably 30 people.
All right, 30
per
people
shift.
Yeah, okay. If
and
they
it
do
probably
more than
never
one shift.
shuts down.
If they do
Yeah.
more than one shift, so you have 90, that's 100 people.
for one thing. A newspaper is a huge industry. Huge. Then you got administrative people in 2 different departments. You got administrative people that support the editorial and the printing and the production of the newspaper. Then you have administrative that support distribution and sales. Those are 2 different departments. And
Well,
each
if
one of those
200
is
people
huge.
is 5%, that means they must have
Don't ask me to do that math.
2,500 people.
Yeah, that doesn't sound weird. That's actually a small newspaper.
So if you have 2,500 people and you're losing $77 million a year, that's a
Because
problem.
it's not the people's fault. It's the and the guy from England is full of shit. I'm sure the newspaper is doing their job. The reason it's losing money is because no one advertises on it, because no one's looking at paper anymore. No
Right.
one's it's not because of the reporters, just no one looks at the newspaper anymore. They get everything on their phone. You just did it yourself.
Right.
No
Well,
one
I
looks at
read
the
almost everything on my phone now.
My old newspaper had probably, I think we had, if you include all the bureaus and everything, back in the 80s, about 3,000 people for the Orlando Sentinel. You
Wow.
know, it ebbed and flowed. And now, and it was many buildings, and again, a huge press and everything. Now it is a storefront, and I think there's 6 people employed there.
Yeah.
And it is, and the paper itself, when it comes out, it's like our little neighborhood news thing. It's ridiculous. It makes me sad, but that's the way shit goes. Nobody wants to use paper. Adapt, you know.
So
Good for the forests.
but they got rid of. So they divided the newsroom or the operations, whatever, into 3 groups. The woman who was the, I don't know, managing editor or whatever. She wasn't the. I don't think she was the publisher.
There's
She was-
editor in chief, managing editor. There's a publisher above those guys.
All right. So whoever he hired, he decided to divide it up into 3. And instead of her being editor in chief, he said you can be one of the 3 editors of the 3 departments. And she said no and quit, which is fair. I mean, perfectly. If that's not your gig, that's not your gig. So then he replaced her with people that he knew or whatever. I don't know who he hired. I don't know anything about that, except that they were all men and white, which caused a revolt in the newsroom. And then they're printing stories ripping into this publisher about how there's not enough diversity on the masthead. There should be women or minorities or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not saying that's not a bad thing to have discussions internally about that, but to do it outside, I mean, I was a policeman for 28 years. I wouldn't be allowed to just go tell, newspaper reporters or put in the paper how rotten the superintendent was.
Papers always
I'd be
report on
fired.
themselves.
Yeah,
It's proof of their journalistic integrity
but about internal employment decisions?
all the time. They've been doing that ever since there were newspapers.
Yeah, it seemed weird to me.
Oh, they're not they're different kinds of companies than a regular company, you know. And there's always they're not as
You know what, though?
they're not
I'm
as
sorry.
governable.
Yeah, but I think they are to a certain extent. You can't go in there and say, you know what, I don't think we should have a woman as an editor-in-chief. And then writing about how rotten Susan Busby is or whatever her name is, they wouldn't be able to get away with that.
Well, I mean, they might if their job is to present opinions. If they're an opinion
But
editor,
NPR just fired a guy for doing that, for saying there wasn't enough diversity of thought in NPR, and that they ought to hire people with conservative views to at least report on the conservatives instead of having liberals report on everything. And he got fired. He got suspended without pay, and then I guess he resigned. I don't know if he got fired, but so to a certain extent, they do have some control.
yeah, they do have control, but newspapers are historically quite ungovernable. And reporters are always revolting, and also this is a crazy part, especially with print newspapers and stuff. But once the editor-in-chief goes home, somebody's got to push the button that makes the things print.
Yeah.
And if they decide they want to run a story, they're not going to wake up the editor-in-chief to tell them, hey, we're going to run that story, and I think they're going to make the decision themselves. That's the whole point of having those people in mind. So that kind of thing happens too.
All right.
And some of those stories probably aren't in the print edition. They're probably on the reporters' Twitter feeds and other social media things like that, which are traditionally not as governed.
Wait, first of all, just to do that, I think there's a difference between a personal Twitter feed and your professional work. I was speaking specifically about, and like I said, I didn't read these stories. What I heard was on the news was that these were printed in the paper. And I agree with your idea, but okay, there's a check to that. If the editor, the nighttime editor or the city news desk editor or whatever the hell they call them, pulls the trigger on a story and goes, you know what, we're going to print that story about the publisher. It has merit. And then the publisher doesn't like it. The publisher's not going to pull the paper off the streets, but he could fire that editor.
Yes, he can. It happens a lot.
Yeah. So
a lot of turnover on those positions for that very reason.
Yeah.
They may there's a like in any business they have a chain of command, but then they also have a decision making formula, and they have a point of view, and so that way when the floor editor, when something comes up, the managing editor on duty, all right, when a breaking story comes, knows how they're going to report that story, and that's how they assign it to reporters, and etc. They know how they report on different things, and so a managing editor gets to make the decision on if they're going to run that story and who's going to do it. Every day, the managing editor and the like the head writers and the editors of each section all sit around a desk and they bitch about which stories are going to go in the paper, and it's a fight every fucking time, every single day.
My problem with papers, and this is getting off the topic a little bit, off the subject, but my problem with papers is now I use Feedly, which I have several different papers and magazines, everything from the Chicago Tribune to the Atlantic, and some websites that I keep track of too. But the problem is, especially for Chicago news, like I read, Chicago Tribune. All right, like say there was 2 mass shootings this past weekend, right? In Chicago, there was where 7 people got shot at one and 6 got shot at another, within an hour of each other on the west side.
Crazy.
And the story popped up on my news feed. It happened in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., whatever. And the one where the 14-year-old got shot was like 1 a.m. And they popped up on my news feed 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I saw the story. But that's not going to be in the paper until the next day, right?
I mean, they only have one edition. So
right.
They don't have like an afternoon edition or anything.
Right. So the odds are...
It'll be in the digital. It was already in the digital.
It was in the digital. That's how I saw it. It's in the digital thing, but it's not in the paper. And
it'll change before it hits the paper.
Right. Even if it is in the paper, it'll be 3 lines saying this happened at this address and the investigation's beginning. And then the next day will be whatever they've developed over the 24 hours. And it's a
news cycle.
Yeah, I just the news cycle has gotten way shorter with digital than it, and the paper still stays the same, which is probably a big reason why the paper is getting killed.
I think that it's such a huge issue about what's killing newspapers, but there are 2 or 3 major things killing newspapers. First was the decision by Bill Clinton administration to allow for consolidation of ownership across the board of media. All right, that was a terrible decision. I can't remember the name of it. A very, very bad decision. We lost a lot of independent newspapers, family-run newspapers, regional newspapers that got bought up, and not like they couldn't refuse the money. And that's suddenly you have the Chicago Tribune suddenly owns the Los Angeles Times and the Orlando Sentinel and a million other newspapers.
Yeah, but
the timber companies and the distribution companies and the radio stations and the TV stations, all owned by one company.
Right, and I agree with that, but and it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with Apple coming out with the iPad, but all of a sudden, now with the internet exploding, there is a million independent journalists just can post anything to a blog.
Yeah.
Now it wasn't like they planned that.
No, it's just the way things happen.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the second thing. Newspapers are incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Because you're using a finite resource. And you also have this, you can only print so much. On the internet, you have an infinite amount of space, and you spend no physical resources unless you count power. But for all those independent blogs, one of the problems with them is there was no longer a threshold of expense. And suddenly anybody, you and I, are doing a podcast now because it doesn't hardly cost us anything.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why it's not just the
It's a
technology.
one-time layout for the equipment.
Yeah, it's not just the internet. What was I saying?
The newspaper itself costs money. The
Right.
paper and
And in all the blogs and podcasts and everything, they simply don't have that kind of expense. And at the same time, but they don't have. This is kind of second half thing. They don't have the kind of governance that an expensive business had. They just don't have the governance. Joe, whatever, can start his own blog, and if it becomes super popular, he now influences people with his insane decision and his insane point of view. And then the third thing, I forgot.
all right. But getting back to the second thing, I do think that you're talking about editors and right when you say governance.
Governance is mostly editors and publishers. Yeah.
All right, and I think that has gone way downhill. I mean, that story I read, but I mean, I see that all the time. Misspelled words, run-on sentences.
That's the third thing. The third thing is because of the lack of expense and because of the sudden, over the last 15 years, 20 years, the explosion of independent news sources, the race to be first is worse, more deadly than it ever has been. If you are the person who publishes stuff first, you're the person who keeps everyone's attention. And attention is the coin of the realm for media. And so newspapers used to be the only place you could go for news. That's why they rocked, and that's why they worked, and that's why people paid shit tons of money to be advertised, because that's where the eyeballs were. Right now the eyeballs are every fucking where on the internet, but they're on the internet.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult for people to govern such an incredibly huge monster because all the reporters having Twitter feeds, suddenly everyone is a publisher, all right? And there's personal feeds, there's private feeds, there's professional feeds, it's insane. The most important thing that a publisher and managing editors and stuff have to do, you would like to say that it's to publish the right news, but it's not. The most important thing is to be first. It was like that with newspapers too, but it wasn't such a big deal. They were fighting TV and radio. Now a newspaper is fighting everybody. They're fighting us, right? If you're first, you make the money.
Yeah.
And so because people are racing to be first, there's less time for them to edit stuff. And so you get shit out there.
And newspapers are almost never first anymore because
No, newspapers, no,
they
not.
might be
the digital part of them is first.
Yeah, they might say that they are first with the full story or something.
Well, yeah, and also a lot of times a newspaper, in order to make their print edition more relevant, if they have an exclusive and they know that nobody else has the story, then they'll run it in a print edition to prove that it's still valid and relevant. I'll never forget when I was working for the newspaper and I was at the comms desk. My job was just to answer phones, and I did the weather page. That was my whole job, right? And we found out from one of our bureaus this plane had crashed in Vero Beach. It's a big fucking deal, right? A couple of people died. It hit a house. It was a nightmare. We were the only news source that showed up. Nobody else knew about it. No one was covering the regional airport or the system that was the aviation, whatever, in that area. Nobody was covering them. The Orlando Sentinel was the only people that had a bureau out there. So we had this story, all right? And it was going to be a cool story. And all the reporters are working on it. And suddenly I got a call from a TV station. And they said, hey, are you guys working on a story about a plane? Now, I didn't know this because I was green at the time, but that is a trick that radio and TV does to print stuff, because they know that the dumbest people at the newspaper work at the comms desk, or the newest, most inexperienced people. You can decide which one I was. And I put the phone on my chest and I looked at the reporters who were covering the plane thing, and I said, hey, Channel 2's on here. They want to know if you guys are covering a plane crash. And those guys almost killed me. One of them came over and hung the phone up, and he goes, never answer the phone for TV, because you send that to an editor. I'm like, sorry, dude. And
Yeah, that's what you learn.
yeah.
They used to call the police department all the time too. Hey, anything going on? No, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that's a lazy fucking thing.
Well, no, I mean, because and I remember them saying that you never know what you're gonna get.
That's
you
true.
know?
You don't know. The worst thing about being a comms guy on the communications desk was how many crazy people would call into the newspaper. It never stopped. The phone never stopped ringing, and it was 95% of it was people that were just completely fucking insane, just nuts. They were being chased by Santa Claus. They'd run out of tinfoil, and the aliens were going to get them. It was nuts, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They were threatened. We got threatened like 3 or 4 times a week. You know?
Oh, we used to get phone calls at the police station all the time, complaining about neighbors or aliens or whatever.
Yeah. We were getting the same calls you get.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. All right, well, I think that's it. Unless you have any other topics you want to talk, we're at.
I mean, I have personal topics. I'm pretty happy with the work I'm doing right now. I just finished the first 60 pages of a novel.
Really?
Yep, I was doing 2,000 words a day for like the last 21 days, and I don't know if that's the right math, but writing it out by hand. All right, each chapter written by hand, which you can see on the video, and then I would type it into Scrivener. And so today I did the last one. I'm gonna clean that up and get ready and do the middle. So this is the one that I planned before I started, and it's working out.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to do it that way.
So what is the site where you have the writing, the
It's
YouTube?
just Christopher Garlington on YouTube.
So look up Christopher Garlington on YouTube. You can watch him writing, but not see
got a
his face.
section called Writers ASMR. I've got a start here video and everything now. You know, it's so dumb, and it's like 10 minutes of work in the morning. You know.
Well, we gotta do something. We're not getting hardly any. If you, by the way, if you want to sponsor us or something, Jeremiah Creek, we're not getting hardly any hits yet.
What are we gonna do when you're in Tennessee? Just do Zoom?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or back and forth. I was also thinking about we should do like 5 or 10 minute videos where we just talk about a topic and then.
I'm telling you, videos get more pull than anything else. Apparently, judging by my stupid ass video thing.
Yeah.
If that can get that many viewers, I mean, you know. All right, let's get out of here.
All right. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week. Let me make sure I turn this on.